This list includes Nigeria, where Paul is from.
He said Paul finally got out after 3 months in ICE detention.
You can't talk about the federal government's deportation efforts without talking about Los Angeles.
His worst crimes were being asleep in his car and having alcohol in his system.
I've been going through hundreds of DMs where they're being spotted, so be careful, mi brasa.
Like driving.
Straps tight.
That's next.
Yeah, that was a crazy story. And it's probably just, one of thousands of stories that are very similar, where they kidnap somebody who didn't do anything wrong, and they eventually get out and get their asylum going again. But they still kidnapped them and disrupted their whole lives and stressed everybody out and just terrorized the entire community. And that's their goal. That's what they're doing. And this particular guy had been kidnapped by Boko Haram before. That's why he had asylum in America to begin with. So he got kidnapped by Boko Haram, came to America to get asylum, and then got kidnapped by ICE. It's terrible. I don't know how anybody feels like this is defensible, or they are even facing what's really going on.
And your community, the news, stories, and music you love, anytime, anywhere. Because of your generosity, CPR remains independent and community-focused. We couldn't do it without you. You are the reason public radio thrives in Colorado. From all of us here at Colorado Public Radio, thank you for making it possible.
From the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX, this is Reveal. I'm Al Letty. Let's go back to last summer, when Trump's massive deportation agenda first occurred. It started with raids at a clothing factory and a Home Depot in Los Angeles. And after protests erupted, Trump called in the National Guard, then the Marines. Soon, ICE was everywhere. It was something no one had seen before. Masked officers with military-style weapons, snatching up people at bus stops, car washes, food trucks. People were being racially profiled and arrested, even some U.S. citizens. A federal judge eventually ordered ICE to stop these tactics in Los Angeles, but the Supreme Court paused the order, allowing them to continue. As all of this was Russia, we checked in with a scrappy news organization that made it their mission to document what was happening. LA Taco covers food culture and the news, and since the immigration raids, they shifted their focus, using their reporting to try and protect their community.
It's June 20th, and this is your daily memo as to
LA Taco. Hey, Mr. Trollduck.
Busy. ICE has been everywhere.
Each day, reporter Memo Torres would go on Instagram to tell followers where ICE was spotted.
They were at the Home Depot and a car wash in Huntington Park, from downtown on 16 Grand, taking people. Went back.
Many of the restaurants and taco stands LA Taco featured over the years were now ICE targets. People they knew were getting rounded up.
I've been going through hundreds of DMs where they're being spotted, and it's a pretty general theme. The theme is working Latinos. So be careful, mi brasa.
They're terrorizing.
Over the following months, thousands of people, mostly Latinos, would be taken and arrested in Los Angeles.
I haven't heard about an arresting, kidnapping, sorry. I haven't heard about kidnapping.
As the focus shifts, it doesn't mean things go back to normal. Because ICE is still in LA, and so is Memo.
Today is Wednesday, January 28th, and it's day 236 of this escalation that's without a doubt doubling down with signs that it's about to get exponentially worse.
His daily memos are still alerting people, letting them know where ICE has been seen.
They were in Alhambra, Boyle Heights, Chinatown,
who federal agents have been targeting.
The Border Patrol continued their new streak of following and arresting.
And how many people ICE has taken away?
Yeah, they keep trying to terrorize people who are watching them.
What could have only been over 50 people taken from us today was reduced to about 20.
Memo has deep roots in his community. He's a third-generation landscaper and used to own his own landscaping business. In fact, he's seen some of his employees get rounded up by ICE. His daily memos have become a way for him to advocate for immigrant communities in LA and fight back.
Thanks, All American Heroes.
LA just doesn't get that much attention anymore, we wanted to check back in with him. So we asked Memo to come
Good
back
job,
and
Reveal.
talk to us. Memo,
I better get
how you
going though,
doing?
guys.
I'm doing okay, man. Got a little rest this weekend after the
Check
marches
this out
and
on
protests
Reveal.
and all that, but you know,
Yeah, the work never ends.
it never stops, man.
So tell me, what's LA been
Bless
like?
you too.
Like, what's going on in LA now?
It's
Because
good to see
the
you.
focus nationwide right now is on Minneapolis, but things are still happening in LA.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
still
we've
have a
been
couple more
seeing
minutes to hear
slow
this.
escalation. I feel like while all eyes are in Minneapolis, people tend to forget that they've never left Los Angeles. I've even had to go on and clarify to different people who believe that Border Patrol and ICE left Los Angeles a long time ago, and that's never been the case. Just actually last week, we had about 50 incidents reported in one single day, which is outrageous compared to their previous record, which was about 30 incidents. And we used to do like 30 or 40 incidents a week. They blew that out of the water in one day. And we also saw in Adelanto they have about 28 vehicles, brand new vehicles, still with dealer tags there, the same type of vehicles they use for their raids. And so we're expecting for those to be included on their patrols.
So the spotlight has moved on from your city, even if the raids themselves have not. What's it like for residents to keep living under this oppressive force for so long?
I mean, every single day we're verifying raids. We get all these videos. We confirm activity through responders, community watch, and sometimes we call people. And I think one of these calls, I called the car wash to confirm activity and how many people were taken, because all we got was a report. So we didn't have any like actual video footage evidence. So I called this car wash. It was the owner of a car wash to ask him if they were there. And he told me, yeah, man, they took about 4 of my employees. Okay, cool. Do you know if it was ICE or CBP? He's like, it was the guys with the green suits. I'm like, okay, that's CBP. And then at the very end, when I said, thanks, man, he's like, hey, man,
They're all
appreciate what you
Klansmen
do.
and terrorists.
And so like, yeah, man, we live and work in fear every day. And that's something, like he put it best. And it's something that other people had elaborated, but just not that simple and concise. Every night after I finish my daily memos, I go to a taco stand somewhere in LA and I ask people how they're doing. And they've all told me different ways, that same expression. They'll tell me like, what are we supposed to do? Like, if we don't go out to work, we either get kicked out of our home or we get kicked out of the country. Like, either way, we're screwed. So we have to get out here and risk it.
It's crazy. It's
So you've
crazy
been
what these
watching this
terrorists
play
are
out
doing
for
to
more than
Americans and
200 days.
everybody who
Have you
lives here.
seen federal agents change their tactics? Have you seen resistance from the community shift? How's that been working?
Yeah, it's like a big cat and mouse game. The community response has developed tactics to try to stop the Border Patrol raids, and then Border Patrol will adjust their tactics to try to get around the rapid responders. Recently, we've been seeing Border Patrol specifically get super agitated and frustrated when, you know, their raids get foiled because of the community watchers. And so they've started going after community watchers a lot. We've seen several instances where they followed a young lady in their car, pulled her out and hold her hostage for like 3 hours.
They go back to houses that people used to live in.
Maria Sente is a U.S. citizen. She's also a community observer and believes that has made her a target of ICE. Her detention.
We had another gentleman who goes to ICE Military 93 who in Compton was recording them. And they rushed him, they tackled him, they tased him, they beat him. They held him at the Metropolitan Detention Center for the whole day. Nobody knew where he was until he was released. We saw L.A. Hoodlum, another community watcher who was also following the patrol. They called Bell PD, Bell Police Department, to have him arrested, and they arrested him. And community came out to kind of pressure Bell PD to let him go, and he was let go after that. So you're seeing this escalation of Border Patrol agents getting frustrated, and then, you know, more cases of pulling their guns out at these people, harassing them, calling police departments. So you're starting to see a frustration escalate.
So in order to inform the public on what ICE is doing and stop them from taking people, you guys have created a pretty advanced system.
Yeah, it's a pretty advanced, I would say, counterintelligence, surveillance system that just monitors Border Patrol activity, strategies, their presence, their movements, and alerts the community as to how they're moving, if they're changing strategies, and just a visual observation, not interfering, not impeding, just kind of, you know, an alert system. You know, all this starts in the early morning where a community watch group called Harbor Peace Patrol goes out to Terminal Island where Border Patrol sets up in the morning. And then as they leave, they'll take pictures of the vehicles and the license plates because Border Patrol will change out their license plates every single day. And in some instances, like 5 cars have one similar license plate tag. And then they'll alert the whole community, and then the community members will share that with their local response groups and community watch groups. And they're the ones going around and keeping an eye out in their neighborhoods.
I'm eagerly anticipating the post-Trump celebration. Yeah, sorry about the trolls, y'all.
These communities.
So these community watch groups, they're basically just folks like out in the streets. They live in the neighborhoods. They're organizing themselves into group chats, patrolling their local Home Depots, car washes, street corners, their residential neighborhoods, their school drop-offs, and just kind of staying on the lookout for Border Patrol's raids or ICE doing a targeted attack.
So when
thanks everybody for stopping the kidnappers.
Spot ICE in there.
Welcome to the Ultraviolet Lions, Blue
often
Lions.
pull out their phones and record, right? And since this started in LA,
Welcome One Piece.
people have sent you a ton of videos. You've become like
I'm gonna shut it down pretty soon though.
How many do you think you've collected and verified so far?
I'm getting close to about 5 terabytes right now, filling up my hard drive.
Wow. I can't even imagine how many videos that is.
Yeah, no, I'm in the thousands. I'm easily like in the
thousands of videos of ICE brutality.
Most of the videos that you have right now are masked ICE agents. If you're looking to hold them accountable, do you think you're going to have a hard time identifying who these agents are?
Not really, actually. We're starting to get good at identifying which agents are which, especially their body styles. These are not like the, like soldiers' bodies, which are all fit and kind of similar. They're all quirky. Some are fat or lanky or chicken-legged or duck feet. We have nicknames for a lot of these different agents. So we can recognize who's who, short of doxing and saying what their names are and their addresses and identifying the actual agent. We do recognize them. And when somebody does get doxed and their identity gets revealed, we're able to go back and figure out, oh, he was at this rate, that's him, and then, piece it together.
You're not gonna get away with it, that's for sure.
People are really watching these videos, even some Los Angeles City Council members.
He has hundreds of hours of work that he has documented that I hope will be the tools, that will be the reckoning, that will hold the individuals accountable.
They even invited you to speak at a hearing last December.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Memo Torres.
And at that hearing, you took it as an opportunity to call elected officials out. Let's listen in.
It shocks me to know that politicians, our people, our leaders aren't paying attention to the issue. And I don't know why. This isn't going away. I can tell you that it's escalating. You know who's out there doing the real fight and doing the standing up? The people. It's our rapid responders. They're out there daily using their gas, their time, taking time away from work, organizing themselves, doing counterintelligence, surveillance, and trying to be out there in the streets to prevent more people getting taken. And they are effective, but they need support. Yeah. It's crazy to hear that playback. It's like, damn, I said that?
You did, sir. You did.
It was in the heat of the moment, honestly. Councilmember Monica Rodriguez invited me to come through and testify as to what's going on with ICE and the raids. So in my head, I thought I was gonna sit down and they were gonna ask me questions. I was just gonna respond and kind of inform them on things. Instead, what happened is that as a city council session was starting, she introduced me and said, "Here, Memo, here's the mic. Say something." I'm like, I had nothing planned. I didn't know what I was gonna say. So I stepped up to the mic and I was like, I'm gonna call you guys out. What the hell are you guys doing? This is happening every single day. Our mayor's not paying attention. Our civic leaders aren't really doing as much. And not all of them. There's some council members that are doing the work. There are some people in the county board that are doing the work, but for the most part, it's very few of them. So yeah, I just felt like I'm gonna call you guys out. Thanks for giving me the mic and the stage.
How was that taken?
After that, I went to the back and some of the council members came up to thank me for saying this and speaking up, the ones doing the actual work. A couple of other ones, one of them came up to me and she was like, I just want to say, calling me out for not doing anything. I just want you to know that I am doing something, but I'm not doing it publicly. I'm doing it hidden because I'm being doxxed and I'm afraid for my life. I'm like, well, then get the f- off the seat. Like, we're all like putting our life on the line. All these your constituents and community members are putting their lives on the line. Like, what the hell are you doing then? Like, if you're not ready to like represent, like you literally were elected to be the face and represent the voice of people. I didn't say that to her, but like how that's what I went through.
But that's what you're feeling, yeah.
Yeah, and then so it's just like, yeah, I haven't really seen much. Like, I just don't see the city uniting, like the mayor, all the city council members, you know, the police commission to like unite and be like, this is our city, we're gonna protect it.
I mean, when you look at Minneapolis, it feels like Minneapolis has, on a whole, come together to, at the very least, let it be known that like this type of action shouldn't be happening in Minneapolis.
Exactly.
Whereas, like, you don't feel like that's happening in LA now.
No,
Do you think that is because the cameras aren't there anymore?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're representing areas that they're afraid the constituents are pro-ICE or pro-Trump. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. Just it's beyond me.
How are you doing? Like, this is your community, your people. What's it been like for you?
You know, it's a whirlwind of emotions, but I like to say that I think my life has prepared me to be able to handle this moment and grab it by the horns and be able to, you know, fight it like a bullfighter. I don't let it get to me. I know how to compartmentalize. I know how to handle my emotions. And for me, like, it's just this motivation to keep going, to keep doing what I want. When I see something happening that you know, angers me, or I'm out there and people are filling me with gratitude and support and appreciation, all of that just fuels me to continue doing what I'm doing. It's gone from like trying to understand what's happening and dealing with like a crisis every single day to now becoming a daily part of life, you know, which is insane. Now it's like every day you wake up like, okay, we're gonna go back to covering ice trades, where they're gonna be at. We have a routine, we've grown, we've been able to like formalize our procedures here at LA Taco. I got some more support now. We're 4 of us covering the raids now. So yeah, it's weirdly become something that we've systemized, you know, whether how we process our emotions, how we the raids happen, how we record them, how we verify.
All right.
Sadly, become a part of daily life now.
Sorry, guys.
Memo Torres, thank you so much for coming on to the show and talking to me again.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you guys
Nice
for
to see
keeping
you.
attention to this.
I gotta shut it down though, but
That was Memo Torres from LA Taco, a publication that covers food and the news. You can find Memo's work on LA Taco's Instagram and their website, lataco.com. We reached out to the president of LA City Council, Marquise Harris Dawson. A spokesperson said the council member sympathizes with Memo and that the city council has been trying to limit what ICE can do, but keeps running into legal challenges. Recently, though, LA's mayor signed a directive that bans ICE from using city property to stage operations. The new rules also require LAPD to collect and preserve evidence during immigration raids as a way to hold federal agents accountable. We also reached out to the Department of Homeland Security, and in a statement, DHS said since June 2025, it's made 12,000 arrests in LA, despite, quote, violence from rioters and demonization by sanctuary politicians. The department did not say when operations would end in Los Angeles. That story was produced by Reveal's Stephen Rascon. Our lead producer for this week's show is Katie Mingle with help from Michael I. Schiller. Brett Myers and Cynthia Rodriguez edited the show. Thanks to Susan Beatty, Priya Patel, and Lauren Markham for their help with the show, and to UC Berkeley's Deportation Data Project. Artist Chiriskis is our fact checker. Victoria Baranetsky is our general counsel. Our production manager is Zulema Cobb. Score and sound design by the dynamic duo, Jay Breezy, Mr. Jim Briggs, and Fernando, my man, Yo Aruda. They had help from Claire C. Note Muller. Taki Teledinas is our deputy executive producer. Our executive producer is Brett Myers. Our theme music is by Camarado, Lightning. Support for Reveal is provided by the Reva and David Logan Foundation, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Jonathan Logan Family Foundation, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the Park Foundation.
I'll see you guys soon. I gotta go.
Foundation and the Hellman Foundation. Support for Reveal is also provided by you, our listeners. We are a co-production of the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX. I'm Al Lenson, and remember, there's always more to the story.
This is CPR News, 90.1 FM, KCFR Denver, 1490 AM, KCFC Boulder, on HD at 90.1 FM and CPR.org. For music that helps you relax, reflect, and breathe. Come to CPR Classical. Listen at CPR.org. Because you support Colorado Public Radio, you make space for fact-based news, music discovery, and the stories that might otherwise go unheard. You keep trusted journalism accessible. You lift up local voices. You fuel music that connects us. And your gift is not just a donation, it's a declaration that public media matters. From all of us at CPR, thank you.
Rebecca remembers exactly when she learned the astonishing truth. She was in second grade and ran into her best friend Rachel at school one day.
And she pulled me aside and said, last night, I lost a tooth, and I woke up while the tooth fairy was putting the money under my pillow. And guess who the tooth fairy was? She said, oh my God, who was it? I have to know. And she said, my dad is the tooth fairy. And I remember running home after school and telling my mom, I know who the tooth fairy is, and declaring it as if I had grown up, that I knew who the tooth fairy was. And she said, oh, well, who is the tooth fairy? And I turned to her and I said, Rachel's dad is the tooth fairy. Ronnie Loberfeld is the tooth fairy. And she said, I can't believe you know. It's totally a secret. You can't let anyone else know, but you're right. Ronnie is the tooth fairy, and, he works really hard, and, it's a secret, so you can't let anyone else know. He is the tooth fairy, but you can't let anyone else know. And from that day on, Ronnie Loberfeld was the tooth fairy, and all of my notes under my pillow were signed, Love, Ronnie Loberfeld.
Now, in his day job, what did Ronnie Loberfeld do?
I think he did something in finance. He was either an accountant or a stockbroker. He worked next to a Stop and Shop in Massachusetts, in Newton. Had dark hair, wore a suit, and I definitely had images of his driving his Volvo around the Boston area.
Did they do?
And delivering the tooth fairy treats.
Oh, nice.
I remember wondering what it was like for Rachel to know that her dad was the tooth fairy, and definitely being a little envious that her dad had this special job and this special power, and that he had this whole other interesting life where my dad just came home from work and that was it.
So when you would actually run into Ronnie Loberfeld, what was it like for you? How would you act?
I tried to act cool. I didn't want to, it's like if you're starstruck, but you don't want them to know that you're starstruck.
Just like meeting a celebrity.
Exactly. You downplay it, you try not to mention it, but you definitely check them out twice and look at them when they walk away. Like, oh my God, you're the tooth fairy.
But you knew enough to play it cool.
I knew enough to play it cool. I said, hey, how you doing? What's for dinner? How am I getting home tonight? Are my parents going to pick me up? Have they called?
You did play it cool. One interesting question in all this. Why did both girls come to what seems like the least likely conclusion from the evidence in front of them of a parent swapping money for a tooth under a pillow? Well, Alison Gopnik studies how children think, and she says, of course, it's logical for a 7-year-old to conclude that her own dad might be the tooth fairy.
Children understand that their parents, for instance, are powerful in all sorts of ways that make them very different from children. Now, from a child's point of view, knowing where those powers begin and end is pretty tricky. I mean, think about all the things that your parents can do that you can't do. And think about the fact that there isn't any obvious explanation about why your father can use a Visa card, for instance, which is something that you can't do. The power to be a tooth fairy isn't all that much more impressive.
There's a certain kind of story that kids tell, like the Ronnie Loberfeld story, where they look at something going on around them, observe it carefully, think about it logically, how one thing connects to the next thing, to the next, and then come to conclusions that are completely incorrect. Therapist Aileen Goldman in Texas tells this story about a little girl on an airplane.
And she was about 4 years old. And her very first flight, and as the plane was airborne, she turned to the woman next to her and said, "When do we get smaller?" That had been her experience at airports watching airplanes take off. They do get smaller.
That's awesome.
These stories are like jokes, and they're also like poems. I think because there's this aha quality to them. Some connection is made between things. A surprising connection, a wrong connection, actually. Well, we at This American Life love these
This American
stories.
Life.
And so today we
On
bring you a
NPR.
full hour of them. From WBEZ Chicago, it's This American Life. I'm Ira Glass. Today on our program, Kid Logic, our show in 4 acts. Act 1, baby scientists with faulty data. Act 2, werewolves in their youth, a story from Michael Chabon. Act 3, the gay man over to the Fatso Man sings. Act 4, when small thoughts meet big brains. Today's program is a rerun, a good one. Stay with us.
Sounds good. All right. See y'all in a minute. I guess we'll let it keep going.
Support comes from Semple Brown, an independent architectural and interior design firm focused on cultural, educational, and hospitality projects that enhance the community. SempleBrown.com.
State agriculture officials are on high alert. A dangerous parasite may soon cross the U.S. southern border and make it to Colorado.
The challenge is if we don't catch those cases early enough, that's where it gets really, really tricky.
With state livestock and wildlife potentially at risk, learn about Colorado's preparations for the New World screwworm. Come to CPR.org.
This American Life, Act 1, baby scientists with faulty data. 50 years ago, psychologists and scientists believed that babies could not think at all, that they were irrational and illogical, self-centered little balls of need and want. And what science has learned is that this is not true, that children are observing the world and thinking about it and coming to logical conclusions from the day they're born. When Alison Gopnik and 2 of her colleagues decided to summarize a lot of this research in a book, they called it The Scientist in the Crib, meaning that babies are like little scientists. They argue that when a small baby sits in a high chair and drops a spoon onto the floor over and over and over for mom or dad to pick up, what the baby is doing essentially is running a little baby-sized experiment.
Because it turns out that babies are very interested in gravity and how gravity works. The fact that things fall down and not up is not obvious to babies. And it turns out another thing they're very interested in is human beings and how they work. We are actually the lab rats. They're actually doing experiments on us to see how we tick. So when you play Drop the Spoon, you get 2 for the price of 1. You get an experiment about gravity, you get a little physics tutorial, and you get a psychology tutorial. You can see about how that person will do something over and over again.
While kids think with the same logic that adults use and apply that logic just as rigorously, there are certain things that they simply do not know and take a while to figure out. Up to 6 or 7 years old, for instance, it's not exactly clear to anyone what is imaginary and what is not, or if wishing for something can make it come true.
There's a wonderful experiment about this, actually, that Paul Harris in England did, where he got children to imagine that something was in a box. So he would say, okay, now here's this box. We're going to open it up. We're going to close it. Now let's imagine that there's a puppy in this box. Or else let's imagine that there's a monster in the box. And he asked the children, is there really a monster in the box? Is there really a puppy in the box? They said no, they were just imagining it.
Then the researcher would walk out of the room, leaving the box behind with the child. And then something funny would happen. The kids who were told to imagine a puppy in the box would go over and peek inside the box, just to check. And the kids who were told that there was a monster in the box, they would edge away from the box.
So They weren't going to take any chances, just in case wishing actually could make monsters happen. They didn't want to take any chances about what was going on in that box. But by the time the children are 6 or 7, they, like grown-ups, they've understood that just wishing for things isn't going to actually make them happen.
Well, depends on how you grow up, I guess.
And inexperienced about what happens in the real world.
Still do things, though.
Children
Just
have to
wish.
make logical inferences all the time based on the data that they do have. Here is how children respond. Producer Jonathan Goldstein asked them about the tooth fairy.
What do you think she does with all of these teeth that she's collecting?
Maybe she gives it to the people without teeth.
Like who?
Old people.
What do you think she does with all these teeth?
I really think she just likes to collect teeth and make things out of them.
Like what kind of stuff?
Lots of stuff. Make a tooth house, tooth trophy, and a tooth death.
How many teeth do you think it takes to make a tooth house?
100. 100.
Why wouldn't she just make the house out of bricks, like everyone else?
Because I don't.
What did this all mean? What did this all mean? And so to celebrate the birth of Jesus.
Oh, thank you.
And she wanted to know more about that. And we went out and bought a kid's Bible and had these readings at night.
What a timely time for you to bring that up.
Everything about Jesus.
That I've been spreading the news about the
so we read a lot about
book of
his
Judas.
birth and about his teaching, and she would ask constantly what that phrase was, and I would explain to her that it was "do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And we would talk about those old words and what that all meant, you know. And then one day we were driving past a big church, and out front was an enormous crucifix. She said, "Who is that?" And I guess I'd never really told that part of the story. So I had to sort of, that's Jesus. And I forgot to tell you the ending. Yeah, well, he ran afoul of the Roman
So I've been spreading the word of the book of Judas, and people have been trying to say it's false, but I'll still try. Well, thanks.
Radical and unnerving to the prevailing authorities at the time that they had to kill him. They came to the conclusion that he would have to die. That message was too troublesome. It was about a month later after that Christmas, we'd gone through the whole story of what Christmas meant, and it was mid-January, and her preschool celebrates the same holidays as the local schools. So Martin Luther King Day was off. So I knocked off work that day, and I decided we'd play, and I'd take her out to lunch. And we were sitting in there, and right on the table where we happened to plop down was the art section of the local newspaper. And there, big as life, was a huge drawing by like a 10-year-old kid in the local schools of Martin Luther King. And she said, "Who's that?" And I said, "Well, as it happens, that's Martin Luther King. He's why you're not in school today. So we're celebrating his birthday. This is the day we celebrate his life." And she said, "So who was he?" I said, "Well, he was a preacher." And she looks up at me and goes, "For Jesus?" And I said, yeah, actually he was. But there was another thing that he was really famous for, which is that he had a message, and you're trying to say this to a 4-year-old. It's very, this is the first time they ever hear anything. So you're just very careful about how you phrase everything. So I said, he was a preacher, and he had a message. And she said, "What was his message?" And I said, "Well, he said that you should treat everybody the same no matter what they look like." And she thought about that for a minute. And she said, "Well, that's what Jesus said." And I said, "Yeah, I guess it is. I never thought of it that way, but yeah." And it is sort of like do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And she thought for a minute and looked up at me and said, "Did they kill him too?"
All right, I'll be right back. Spoiler alert, yes, it is.
2, werewolves in their youth. In this act, we have this example of kids thinking like kids. It's an excerpt of a short story by Michael Chabon. I've known him as a bulldozer, as a samurai, as an android programmed to kill, as Plastic Man and Titanium Man and Matter Eater Lad, as a Buick Electra, as a Peterbilt truck, and even for a week as the Mackinac Bridge. But it was as a werewolf that Timothy Stokes finally went too far. I wasn't there when it happened. I was down in the ravine at the edge of the schoolyard, founding a capital for an empire of ants. I had just begun to describe to myself and to the ants the complicated rites sacred to the god whose worship I was imposing on them when I heard the first screams from the playground. The girls screamed at Timothy the same way every time he came after them, in unison and with a trill that sounded almost like delight, as if they were watching the family cat trot past with something bloody in its jaws. I scrambled up the side of the ravine and emerged as Timothy, shoulders hunched, arms outstretched, growled realistically and declared that he was hungry for the throats of puny humans. Timothy said this was something like it every time he turned into a werewolf, and I would not have been too concerned if, in the course of his last transformation, he hadn't actually gone and bitten Virginia Pease on the neck. It was common knowledge around school that Virginia's parents had since written a letter to the principal, and that the next time Timothy Stokes hurt somebody, he was going to be expelled. Timothy was, in our teacher Mrs. Gladfelter's words, one strike away from an out. And there was a widespread unarticulated hope among his classmates, their parents, and all of the teachers of Oakland Fork Elementary that one day soon he would provide the authorities with the excuse they needed to pack him off to special school. I stood there a while above my little city, watching Timothy pursue a snarling lupine course along the hopscotch crosses. I knew that someone ought to do something to calm him down, but I was the only one in our school who could have any reason to want to save Timothy Stokes from expulsion. And I hated him with all my heart. I've been cursed for 300 years, he claimed. He was wearing his standard uniform of white dungarees and a plain white undershirt, even though it was a chilly afternoon in October and all the rest of us had long since been bundled up for autumn in corduroy and down. I've been cursed to stalk the night through all eternity, he went on. I've been searching for prey as lovely as you. He lunged toward the nearest wall of the cage of girls around him. The girls peeled away from him as though sprayed with a hose, bumped shoulders, clung shrieking to each other's sleeves. Some of them were singing the song we sang about Timothy Stokes. Timothy Stokes, Timothy Stokes, you're going to the home for crazy folks. And the one singing the loudest was Virginia Pease herself, in her furry black coat and her bright red tights. Virginia had blonde hair, and she was the only girl in the 5th grade with pierced ears and painted fingernails, and Timothy Stokes was in love with her. They knew this because the Stokeses lived next door to us, and I was privy to all kinds of secrets about Timothy that I had absolutely no desire that I had to live next door to him. Timothy now advanced, a rattling growl in his throat. She drew back behind her girlfriends, and their screaming now less melodious, less purely formal. He crouched down on all fours. He rolled his wild white eyes and took a look around him. That was when he saw me, halfway across the yellow distance of the soccer field. He was looking at me, I thought, as though he hoped I might have something I wanted to tell him. Instantly, I dropped flat on my belly, my heart pounding the way it did when I was spotted trying to spy on a baseball game or a birthday party. I slid down into the ravine backward. At first, I could hear the girls shouting for Mrs. Gladfelter, and then I heard Mrs. Gladfelter herself sounding very angry, and the bell sounded of recess, and everything got very quiet. But I just stayed there in the ravine. I told myself that I didn't feel sorry at all for stupid old Timothy Stokes, but then I would remember the confused look in his eyes as I had abandoned him to his fate, to all the unimaginable things that would be done to him in the fabulous corridors of the special school. I kept recalling something that I had heard Timothy's mother say to mine just a couple of days earlier. I decided to spend the afternoon in school. The moon, I noticed, was not quite. I didn't hear the scrape of footsteps until they were just above my head. "Aw," said Mrs. Gladfelter, leaning over the lip of the ravine, hands against her thighs. "Paul Covell, what on earth are you doing out here?" "Nothing," I said. "I didn't hear the bell." "Paul," she said, "now listen to me, Paul. I need your help." "With what?" I didn't think she looked angry, but her face was upside down and it was hard to tell. "With Timothy, Paul. I guess he's just very wound up right now. He's pretending he's a werewolf today, and even though that's fine, and we all know how Timothy is sometimes, we have serious things to discuss with him, and we'd like him to stop pretending for just a little while." "What if he isn't pretending?" I said. "What if he really is a werewolf?" "Maybe he is, Paul, but if you would just come inside and talk to him for a little bit, I think we might be able to persuade him to change back into Timothy. You're his friend, Paul. I asked him if he'd like to talk to you, and he said yes." "I'm not his friend, Mrs. Gladfelter. I swear to God, I can't do anything." "Paul, Timothy is in trouble. He needs your help, and I need your help too. Now, if you come right this minute and get up out of that dirt, then I'll forget that you didn't come in from recess. If you don't come back inside, I'll have to speak to your mother." Long silent hallway to the office, him more and more with each step. Was my, him more and more with each step. Was my only friend. Timothy was sitting in a corner of the office, trapped in an orange vinyl armchair. There was a Roman numeral 3 scratched into his left cheek, and his brilliant white shirt and trousers were patterned with a camouflage of grass and dirt and asphalt. "Well now, Timothy," Mrs. Gladfelter took me by the shoulders and maneuvered me around her. "Look who I found." "Hey, Timothy," I said. Timothy didn't look up. Mrs. Gladfelter gave me a gentle push toward him in the small of my back. "Why don't you sit down, Paul?" "No." I didn't want to be left alone with Timothy, not because I was afraid of him, but because I was afraid that somebody would come into the office and see us sitting there, 2 matching rejects in matching orange chairs. "That's enough now, Paul," said Mr. Buterbaugh, the principal, his friendly smile looking more false than usual. "Sit down." "It's all right," said Mrs. Gladfelter. "You see what you can do about helping Timothy turn back into Timothy. We're just going to give you a little privacy." She followed Mr. Buterbaugh into his office and then poked her head back around the door. "I'm going to leave this door open in case you need us, all right?" There were 3 chairs next to Timothy's. I took the farthest and showed him my back so that anyone passing by the windows of the office would not be able to conclude that he and I were engaged in any sort of conversation at all. "Are you expelled?" I said. There was no reply. "Are you, Timothy?" Again, he said nothing, and I couldn't stop myself from turning around to look at him. "Timothy, are you expelled?" "I'm not Timothy, Professor," said Timothy, gravely, but not without a certain air of satisfaction. "I'm afraid your precious antidote didn't work." "Come on, Timothy," I said, "cut it out. The moon's not even full today." Now he turned toward me. "Where were you?" he said. "I was looking for you." "I was in the ditch." "The ants?" I nodded. "I heard you talking to them before." So, are you Ant-Man?" "No, dummy." "Why not?" "Because I'm not anybody. You're not anybody either." We fell silent for a while and just sat there, not looking at each other, kicking at the legs of our chairs. I could hear Mrs. Gladfelter and Mr. Buterbaugh talking softly in his office. Mr. Buterbaugh called her Elizabeth. The telephone rang. A light flashed twice on the secretary's phone, then held steady. "Thanks for calling back, Dr. Schachter," I heard Mr. Buterbaugh say. "Yes, I'm afraid so." I went to see Dr. Schachter a couple times, I said. He had Micronauts and the Fembots. He has Stretch Armstrong, too, said Timothy. I know. Why did you go see him? Timothy said. Did your mother make you? Yeah, I said. How come? I don't know. She said I was having problems with my anger, or I don't know. I guess I was mad about my dad and things. He had to go to jail, Timothy said. Your dad? Just for one night. How come? He had too much to drink, I said. Did you visit him in jail? Timothy said. No, stupid. God, you belong in special school, Timothy. I hope they make you eat special food and wear a special helmet or something. I heard the distant slam of the school's front door and then a pair of hard shoes knocking along the hall. Here comes your mother, he said. What kind of special helmet? Said Timothy. Ant-Man wears a helmet. Mrs. Stokes entered the office. She was a tall, thin woman, much older than my mother, with long gray hair and red, veiny hands. Every morning, she made Timothy pancakes for his breakfast, which sounded okay, until you found out that she put things in them like carrots and leftover pieces of corn. Oh, hello, Paul, she said in her Eeyore voice. Mrs. Stokes, said Mrs. Gladfelter, coming out of the principal's office. It's been kind of a long afternoon for Timothy, I'm afraid. How is Virginia? Said Mrs. Stokes. She still hadn't looked at Timothy. Oh, she'll be fine, Mr. Butterbaugh said, just a little shaken up. We sent her home early. Of course, he added, her parents are going to want to speak to you. Of course, said Mrs. Stokes. I'm ready to do whatever you think would be best for Timothy. I'm not Timothy, said Timothy. Oh, please, Timmy, stop this nonsense for once. I'm cursed. He leaned over and brought his face very close to mine. Tell them about the curse, Professor. I looked at Timothy, and for the first time saw that a thin, dark down of wolfish hair had grown upon his cheek. Then I looked at Mr. Butterbaugh and found that he was watching me with an air of earnest expectancy, as though he honestly thought there might be an eternal black magical curse on Timothy, and was more than willing to listen to anything I might have to say on the subject. I shrugged. Are you going to make him go to special school? I said. All right, Paul, thank you, said Mrs. Gladfelter. You may go back to class now. See you later, Timothy, I said. I jerked my hands twice and went, "Phoop, phoop." Timothy's head snapped back and his eyes fluttered. He shook himself all over. He swallowed once. Then he held his hands out before him as if wondering at their hairless